Hello, I'm Tony King. I'm a photographer, and in this video, I want to talk about how to prepare for a photography trip. Last year, I went to Jekyll Island, Georgia to explore the Driftwood Beach there and a few other locations there, and I took a lot of photos that I really enjoyed, but there's a lot that I learned about how to pack for a photography trip from that trip that I then took onto my next trip, and then I learned from that onto my next trip and onto my next trip. So today I want to make a dedicated video talking about how I'm preparing for my next trip to Jekyll Island coming up and what I'm packing for this trip and why. This is the main camera I shot with last year, the Olympus EPL3, the camera that I started photography on. I love this camera and it was my main camera. Very important to bring on that trip. But I also brought along my Lumix GH5 because here's what I wanted to do is I wanted to shoot on two different lenses because I shoot with prime lenses. So I wanted to shoot on a 50 and a 23 so that I can get tighter shots and wider shots. I wore two cameras on my body pretty much at all times. And then sometimes I also had the film camera. It was a lot. And this camera is also significantly heavier than the Olympus. But why do I need to bring two cameras? I need to stay a little bit more minimalistic. Packing minimally, I think, is the best strategy because the more you carry, the more weight you have, the more it's going to slow you down. And there's also pressure for you to use all the gear that you bring sometimes. Maybe you're not that type of person, but if you are, then you're going to have some sort of guilt. You might decide to use some gear that in the end, you were like, well, I shouldn't have changed lens or something. I wanted to use that one for this. And now the moment's passed, I lost it. So there's some sort of guilt and regret that can come out of those decisions as well. But it's also very important to pack for your health and safety as well. And so let me talk about a little bit of the logistical things that you should bring on a trip to keep yourself safe and take the most amount of good photos with the gear that you've decided to bring. Why do I need a backpack for extra stuff that's not just camera stuff? Well, I'm going to be hiking outside a lot. And there are a few things that I think are essential for this sort of trip that you shouldn't forget. The main thing, water. So I'm going to have a pretty big water jug that keeps my water cold. Doesn't fit on the outside lining of a pack. It's pretty big. I use it for soccer and I usually go through a big chunk of it during a soccer game. So imagine a whole day out just hiking. It's not going to be as intense drinking, but I'm going to need water, and I can also fit my 500 millimeter lens when I need it in there because of course it's not going to fit in my sling pack. Another major thing that comes from photography trips is, well, how do I find where the good photos are? How do I find out where to go to take photos? Where do I park? What might it be? Two major things. Look up photography from this particular location first. How many Driftwood Beach and Jekyll Island videos I watched before going on this trip? So many. I'm also stopping at Cumberland Island. So I watched so many videos about Cumberland Island as well. What might I expect? Sometimes the videos aren't photography centered at all. They're about the history. They're about the location, what you might see, how to get there, logistics of the trip. These are very important and they can tell you a lot of what to expect, but they're not everything. They're not going to tell you everything. But another thing to do is look on social media, like with that location. See what images people are taking. Maybe it's not even photography. Maybe it's a video, an event or something. And you see okay, this is what this location looks like. And it gets your mind rolling a little bit. But the biggest thing that is your best friend when planning a photography trip is Google Maps or any other street view platform. I cannot stress enough. Go on Google Images, Street View, and there's a few things to look out for. First, you can look out for where to park. You can figure out, okay, there's a parking lot here. Does it look like it's paid? Does it look like it's free? Does it look like it's available and open to the public? That's very important. First of all, I can be a little stressed about where to park, so I also figured out if that place is full, where do I park next? So like I've said, I've been to Jekyll Island before. I went last year and it was one of my favorite photography experiences that I had had to date and still is. And I'm looking forward to going back. But I think one thing when you go back to the same location over and over, which is something that I talk about a lot, it's important that you don't skip the step of actually reflecting on your work. So that's what I want to do right now. Go over a handful of images, tell you what I like, tell you what I hope to improve on. That's the most important part, and I think this part of it will help me improve my work more than anything else I do going into the next trip at this particular location. This first image I think is one of my stronger images. I'm using a lot of foreground objects, but isolating the subject, which is this woman walking in deepish water and very silhouetted. I think what's really working here is that the framing device here at the front of the frame is not too chaotic. It really does frame the subject without distracting from the subject. I think what I find here that is working less is a lot of the trees in the background, and not that they shouldn't be there, but I don't think they should be be in the same place that they are. I think there's two options I have here is to go a little bit higher and get some head separation of the woman between the background objects and her so that she's a little bit less messy and more just in the water. Or what I could do is go maybe 5 to 6 feet to the right, lose a little bit of what's on the left, but maintain this larger tree that's going from top to bottom frame and keeping her a little bit more in the water away from what's in the background. I think what's in the background is necessary, but I do wish that it was less close to my subject. So that's something that I'm going to take into account as I'm working on images there. Are there going to be people there? I don't know. Is a similar image going to be there? I don't know. But the principle of what I need to take from this image, absolutely, I need to bring on this next trip. I have an S5 here as well, but this is heavier and not really my go-to, but we brought it last year. My wife was mainly using it for some B-roll, but this year I also have a DJI Osmo, which I've been using for my B-roll, and I'm shooting this video on currently, so that's why you can't see it, but it actually attaches itself to my main camera, so I don't need to bring this other hefty piece of equipment as well. It also has a mic on it. I'm just going to use this one that I'm using now, and I have a second one because they come in two, so in case one dies while I'm out on the field. Other big thing, sun protection. It's important for everybody. I've grown up not using sun protection and getting a lot of sunburns and feeling really, really bad after that. So I think it's very important to have some protection so you can do sunscreen. Since I'm going to be outside a lot, one of the big things that causes bad sunburns actually is forgetting to reapply sunscreen. So what I'm going to be using on this trip is sunscreen, sure, but also sun hoodies and a sun hat. That should keep my head relatively cool. That should keep my arms and neck protected from the sun. And that's going to be a much more healthy experience, a much more cool experience in terms of temperature. The other thing before photography, sometimes I look for where is the nearest bathroom, especially if I'm going somewhere more nature-esque. A lot of places in the US, at least that I've been to that are like a nature trail, usually have like a bathroom at the start of the trail. That's not true everywhere. And it's also not guaranteed that those bathrooms are going to be unlocked and open for use. I think it's always good to know like where you might need to relieve yourself. Sure, if it's the woods, like okay, but that's not necessarily like the most encouraged thing. I would say you should probably just find a bathroom. And I think in a place like Jekyll Island, there are a lot of public beaches pretty nearby. It's a smallish island. So within a 10-minute drive, I'm going to be able to drive to a public beach that's going to have a public bathroom that will be open for public use. And so if I really needed to go to the bathroom, I could run back to my car, drive a few minutes down the road, drive back, and not really have lost more than like 30 minutes. But outside of something like Jekyll Island, you can look for places like that, rest stops, gas stations. Maybe the gas stations in the particular area are a little sketchy. That is very possible. I think one place that I've always looked for when I was in a situation like that are grocery stores like a Kroger, a Walmart, whatever it might be. Those are going to have bathrooms and you might feel a little safer there. So maybe keep that in mind if you're like, well, where's a bathroom, a fast food restaurant, whatever it might be. I don't want to jump in. Grocery stores are also a good place that usually have a bathroom. I've got some gimmicky cameras as well that I like to bring on road trips, especially when I'm with people, but I'm traveling by myself this time. So there's no reason to add, even though this is small weight, it does add room in my bag. I also don't need to bring this. These are things that I definitely consider all the time. I've considered bringing this camera and I've considered bringing the S5 as a backup camera, but there's really no need because it's going to add a lot of weight. And what I'm going to be doing on this trip is a lot of walking around for a long time. So I don't need all this weight dragging me down and making it seem like I've walked 5 miles instead of just one. This image I think is awesome sky. It's out of focus, but what I'm using here is this tree as a framing device with a boat in the background, framing the boat inside like a space and really accentuating the colors of the sunrise here. I'm definitely going to lean into the sunrise look. What I need to take from here is, yes, use trees as a framing device, but if my subject here is this boat, I really need to get the boat in focus, not just the general background. So that brings me to my main setup, which I've been using for about a year now, is the EM1 Mark III Olympus Micro Four Thirds camera with a TT Artisan's 50mm lens. This is what I shot my entire project Recycled Gazes on in Italy last year. I made a zine out of that project and it sold out, which I'm very grateful for. This is my go-to camera. It's not super heavy. It's got some weight to it, but I can take pretty much any image I want to take on this camera just like that. Here's the truth. I used this lens last year and it is tighter. There are a lot of wonderful bigger images to take at Jekyll Island. So what I can also do is, this is my other lens. It fits right in my hand. It's in a koozie. It's my 23mm lens. I'm just going to bring this along. I can easily change the lenses as I go. This is not a lot more weight, but it's a lot more versatility. And last year I brought a whole other camera to have set up with this lens. And so that's how I'm keeping it minimal in that way. But I've got to be honest, I'm also going to walk that back a little bit. Yeah, so last year, a few weeks before going to Jekyll Island, I ordered this lens and it did not show up till like 2 months after I got back from the trip. And so this year I'm going to bring it along. This is a 500mm TT Artisan lens that I got specifically for wildlife, and I was going to see some wildlife on Jekyll Island. Then I actually didn't see all that much. I saw some though, and I was wishing I had a telephoto lens to use on that trip. This is that lens. Here's the big caveat. I'm only going to bring it out when I'm actually going to see some wildlife. So at Driftwood Beach and at a pier, I'm not going to bring out this lens. I'm going to leave it behind. When I'm going on a specific wildlife trip, I'm going to bring it in my backpack, and it's a little hefty, but I could use the workout. But this is the only exception to that, because you have to also pack for the images that you want to take. That's the main point with your camera gear. Here, this is a lovely image of this large tree where I was able to get the whole tree in the frame, and I think that's a very good thing. This is also at sunrise. I think the colors are really nice. A little muted, which is also good, but I think I'll take what the sky looks like and go from there. The biggest problem here, and in a lot of the images that I've looked back at from Jekyll Island, is chromatic aberration. So I really need to pay attention to my aperture and my shutter speed to try and avoid that. And then also in editing, just you can get rid of some of that chromatic aberration to make a cleaner image. And so that's what I'm going to look for in this image. It is a little messy on the bottom left, but you can't change where the trees are. So I think overall the composition is nice here. Bring what you're going to use and for the purpose of what you're going to take. So this is my main camera. I take any image that I want to take with this camera. I'm going to bring the 23mm in case I need to go wider. And I also really like that lens as well. And it's very small. I'm bringing my 500mm for the opportunities of wildlife when I go out to take wildlife images, but only when I go out to take those wildlife images. And that is the important aspect when you are packing your gear. I made a big mistake last year in bringing all these cameras and lenses because I also brought like 5 different lenses with me. Yeah, it was a bad choice. I didn't use everything, not nearly. So this year, packing a lot more minimally, a lot more lightly. And that's where I come to film photography. I'm a little torn. Do I want to bring my new film camera that actually works? I've got a film roll. I could get a little bit more. It doesn't really add a lot of weight. And this is one of those things, like the 500mm lens, I wouldn't have to bring it out every time I walk. So then comes the question, when am I going to choose to bring it out? Am I going to get tired? I'm sort of leaning towards not bringing it now, but I don't know. I'm just not fully sure. So that's something that I'm going to go back on. And I think I'm leaning towards staying as minimal as possible. To the important part, photography, definitely look around locations on Street View and do the 360 look if that's available and see, okay, I see there are trees on this area. I see there's people hang out more in this area. I think this area has a lot of rocks. This area you can walk on, this area you can't walk on. These are very important things to prepare for. It can inform your decisions in what lenses you want to bring. Do I want to bring a telephoto lens, a tight lens, a wide lens only? Like this is, I'm only going to be able to see something interesting here at a wide angle. Other things that add to your weight and space. Obviously you need to bring some batteries, bring some cables. I'm also bringing storage. I bring a bunch of extra SD cards, and I'm going to bring a hard drive on this trip to back up my footage in the evening onto my computer and onto my hard drive. Of course, I'm going to bring a laptop, my computer. I'm bringing the mic. I'm not going to bring the wrench, and of course the camera batteries, but also I think it's very important to bring portable chargers, and these actually come out of carry-on. We got gifted some carry-ons, like carry-on luggage that actually had portable chargers in them. And this charger can actually charge my DJI Osmo Pocket, and I think it can also charge my camera batteries when I plug it in. And so this is something nifty to have. I have 2 of them because it came with 2 matching for my wife and I. This will be helpful in case my batteries are dying. I have 3 batteries, so I should be fine for a whole day in case I need to charge something as I go or charge the camera itself. I'm also going to be bringing a portable charger that's a little bit smaller, but for my phone in case I need that. Shouldn't be using my phone too much. I'm going to be in nature. It's going to be awesome, but you don't want to get stranded by yourself somewhere without a phone charge in case you do need your phone to call for help. Then a couple other basic logistical things to bring in terms of what you wear. You should also have a weatherproof jacket with you on most trips. Even if the weather looks like it's going to be really good, you never know when it's going to be a little wet all of a sudden. So bringing like a waterproof jacket just to have on hand is also very good. You can roll it up real nice and put it somewhere else and just have it in case you need it. I'm not going to bring it in my bag at all times, but I'm going to have it in my car in case it looks like I might need it, and it might be a lifesaver to protect myself and my gear. And of course, walking shoes. You don't want to just bring shoes that look good or whatever it might be. Have something that you can wear at all times. And like, I'm going to be trekking through some woods and through some beaches and whatever it might be. So I'm going to bring some like hefty walking shoes that I don't feel bad stepping in a puddle or stepping over a bunch of branches that I might hurt my foot or get my shoe dirty. So bring something like that. Walking shoes, very important. Here's more of an inspiration. This is one of my favorite photos that I've ever taken. I think this is a timeless image. I've talked about it multiple times on my channel. I really love how I use the tree in the foreground object to frame this family playing in the water, and how there are girls also in the middle of the tree still on the beach, and how that tells a story. If you want to learn more about that, check out my channel where I've talked about this image before. I don't want to go too far into it in this particular video, but also using the overblown nature of the afternoon here and the heat and taking a photo of people, but also keeping them anonymous. Nobody would know who these people are, which I think is important as well. And using some soft focus here. Overall, an image that I'm really satisfied with. There are a few things that could be different, but in general, this aspect of like this photo could have been taken at any point in history. Not really any point, but what I mean, like any point in the last 50 years, that is something that I do enjoy going for. Using Street View to scout out locations, I think is the most important aspect in terms of preparing for a photo trip, especially somewhere you haven't been, knowing a little bit of what to expect and get those gears in your mind rotating a bit and say like, okay, I know what I'm looking for a little bit. I'm looking for trees on the coast. I'm looking for somebody standing on this pier at sunset. And that way you can be prepared for where to park, how to get there, essentially, what photos you're going to take. In the case of an emergency, another place you might be able to stop if necessary to avoid any stressful situations. Other stuff that I'm going to bring, I might bring a monopod. I've got a little tripod stand that I've got the DJI sitting on right now that I can use with my camera as well if I want to do like long exposures or something. But overall, with camera gear, this is the philosophy behind what I'm bringing. I'm putting it all in a backpack. I'm putting it all in my Peak Design bag, which I've reviewed before, but then I'm putting that in a backpack that I have. I have two options to carry all my stuff around. When I have a heavier walk, I'm going to bring my backpack, which can have other things that I'll need. But if I'm not really going that far away from the car or for that long, I can just bring my Peak Design bag, which is going to be pretty light because the camera will be on me. And the only things in there should be some batteries, a microphone, and the extra lens, which is very, very light. If I get tired of carrying the camera or if it all dies, I just put it in there and I'm just carrying one thing. And of course, on top of all of that, bring all the logistical things that you need, like your toiletries and extra clothes, whatever it might be. Those are things that you can just leave at the hotel. A couple of the other things that I'm talking about are things that you might want to bring with you readily available when you're on your walks on a photography trip, being sun protection, walking shoes, weatherproof gear. So those things are very important. Water, and maybe some snacks too. So those are important. Don't forget those when you're planning your photography trip. Lastly, another big flaw with this image is there is some chromatic aberration, but what I really like here is the cinematic quality of the light. Using my wife as a foreground object on the left-hand side to frame this tree. That foreground object could be my wife. It could be anybody else though, or it could be anything else. So likely on this trip, I'll be by myself, so I'll be using trees and other objects, and I think that's important as well. But trying to find a moment where like the water is covering all the base of this tree, so it sticks out in an unnatural way. But I do think here there is still chromatic aberration. There is still a lack of focus. And I think one thing I was really doing last year is shooting pretty much wide open all the time. I don't really do that anymore. So I need to stay at like f2 or f4 or something and use that to get more details in my images. So that's a reflection on some of these images from Jekyll Island. So upon reflection of these images, I think I have a few things that I'm going to look out for. So a few things that I'm going to change and a few things that I'm like, these are things that I want to aim for. I know what the location looks like more or less. It's going to be different when I'm there. Obviously, time of day, maybe some things have shifted over the last year, etc., etc. These are things that inspire me to go back. And these are things that make me hopeful that on this next trip, I'll be able to get a lot of images that I'm really happy with and that maybe make me seem like an amateur last year, which I am. So it's very important that I didn't skip this step of checking in on my work from last year. What did I like? What didn't I like? And I think that'll make me more successful this time around. So I hope you enjoyed this video giving some tips on how to prepare for a photography trip. I think these are things that I've learned as I've gone on a few different photography trips. And so some advice that I want to share, some things that I've heard online before and some others that I haven't as much. So hopefully this video was informational and helpful to somebody who's going on a photography trip, maybe for the first time or maybe for the 10th time. And it's like, maybe there's something I didn't think about. So hopefully you subscribe to my channel to see what images I take on this trip and what other videos I'm going to create while I'm there, because there's going to be a lot of content coming out and it's all going to be photography based, all from this trip over the next few months probably. So hopefully you subscribe and I'll see you in the next videos, and I'll see you from Jekyll Island. I've been Tony King. I'll see you there. Peace.